Oh, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gabriel, just on the Fan TV, back at you on the video. Like the content, this video, go and smash that like button. Like the content of this channel, go ahead and subscribe, man. Look, some Ravens news on a Friday evening. The Ravens have decided to extend John Harbaugh's contract. John Harbaugh was in the last year of his deal. He now gets a new 3-year contract extension with the Baltimore Ravens. I'm assuming he'll be one of the highest paid coaches in the NFL. So what I want to do is I want to talk about my thoughts on it, disagree, agree with it, surprise, not surprise, those kind of things, right? Now we'll get this. We'll start off with the surprise part. I am 100% not surprised that the Ravens decided to do this move, right? For a multitude of reasons, right? The Ravens have been a really, really good regular season team. The Ravens are coming off of winning back-to-back AFC North titles. The team is not regressing in any way that's noticeable on the field. John Harbaugh has been the Ravens coach for a long time now. I mean, you're going on 15 years, something like that. So 17 years, like 2008, right? So I believe he's going to be coming on up on his 18th season, right? So he's been Ravens coach for a long time. All right. Then there's personal levels, right? Him and Bashadi are good friends. He's literal next door neighbors to Eric DeCosta. Even though I believe firing the head coach will probably be a Bashadi move, not really an Eric DeCosta thing, but either way, it was a lot of things that were going to point to the direction of John Harbaugh was going to get a contract extension, right? Okay. Now that that's out the way, I'm not surprised by it. What I will say is that I'm disappointed in the Ravens' decision to do it. Okay. I'm not going to say that, John Harbaugh needs to be fired right now, let him go. What I am going to say is the Ravens' the opportunity to have John Harbaugh coach for his job, right? And I think that's a valid argument. I do, okay? That he's in the last year of his deal. To me, there was no reason necessary to say, hey, look, we must get this contract done right now. Let him coach out the season. Let's see what happens, right? I think that the Ravens and John Harbaugh, their relationship has gotten to a point of complacency, right? When I look at the Ravens, when I look at this team, I see a team that, and honestly, they said it themselves, right? We just want to compete every year, and then we'll get into the postseason and we'll see what happens, right? To me, that's a mindset of complacency, right? And when I look at that to me, that starts with the head coach, right? It can go higher up too. You can say it goes to Eric DeCosta too. That's fine. I mean, but we're talking about John Harbaugh right now, right? So for me, John Harbaugh and the Ravens, how they operate from a place of complacency, right? We had a great regular season. We'll see what happens in the playoffs when we go against the best teams, and hopefully things break our way and we go out there and win a Super Bowl, right? We want to win a Super Bowl, but we tried our best. That's the kind of vibes I get a lot of times when I just see John Harbaugh around, right? That's just my opinion on it, okay? So for me, for the Ravens, I would have liked to see him coach out the season. All right, that's my main thing. I'm not saying you had to fire him, let him go. I might feel like that later points on in this season, in this year. But as of right now, yeah, let him coach out the year. I think it was hasty. I don't think there was really any need to do it at this moment. But John Harbaugh, got to give him a lot of credit, right? I've said this many a times, okay? He is the best coach in Ravens franchise history, right? It's really only going against him, Brian Billick, right? They're tied for Super Bowl titles, and he's had a longer, more sustained success over his career, right? So, we got to give him credit for that, right? I can't take that away from him. That's 100% fact, right? But to me, what I don't like the idea is the fact that just because he's had continued success, right? Just because he's done enough for the Ravens to stay relevant, that means the Ravens can't even think about making a potential hire, a potential move, a potential change. All right. To me, that's how you get to the line of thinking where you're kind of complacent in where you're at. All right. For the Ravens, we got to go back to 2018. All right. When 2018 was happening, that season occurred. It looked like John Harbaugh was going to be out the way, out the door. Lamar Jackson has that electric end of the season where it's like, okay, well, we have some promise here, right? Let's give John Harbaugh another shot with this kid and let's see what happens, right? That kid, Lamar Jackson, turns out to be a 2-time MVP, in my opinion, best quarterback in the NFL currently. A guy, who could have won an MVP again this year, right? It was probably the heavy odds-on favorite and it didn't go that way, whatever. Okay, so yes, I think that Lamar Jackson saved kind of John Harbaugh's tenure here as a Raven, right? As the Ravens head coach. I don't think that's breaking news. I don't think that's shocking to anybody. Everyone when I say something like that. So when I look at the Ravens and I look at this team, I see a team that makes the same mistakes over and over again. Right? How are you, John Harbaugh, and you're a coach that you coach about discipline, not making mistakes, but when the Ravens come to big moments, that's what I see. I see a team that's undisciplined that makes mistakes. Right? You're a special teams guy, right? Special teams is supposed to be your bag, right? When you were before you were Ravens head coach, you were a special teams coach, right? That was your thing. Okay. The Ravens have had a bad special teams the last 2-3 years. Okay. All around. Punt, kickoff, whatever you want to say. Excuse me, outside of a few plays here and there, Tyler Wallace scoring a touchdown on the punt return, outside of a few plays here and there, the special teams unit has been underperforming for several years. Right? So it's not a question about what does John Harbaugh do. Right? John Harbaugh is a football coach, right? He knows offense, he knows defense. So I'm not going to say, oh, well, what do you do out there, right? I get it. He's a long and tenured, experienced head coach, right? So he knows both sides of the ball. In my opinion, it's just that it's time for a change. Okay, you keep coming up and doing the same thing and getting the same results, right? Now, listen, like I said, the Ravens have had success, especially since the last contract extension, right? 2019, 14-2, 2020, 11-5, 2021, 8-9, a lot of injuries that season. 2022, 10-7, 2023, 13-4, last year, 12-5, right? So, go back to the main point. The Ravens aren't becoming a losing team. They aren't a team that's nose diving with John Harbaugh as the head coach. So that makes it hard to say, yeah, you got to get rid of this guy. But for me, I see the Ravens do the same things over and over again, and they're not getting a different result, right? The players change, coaches can change. John Harbaugh is the only guy that gets to remain here, right? So if you keep changing out all of these different factors and the same thing keeps happening, how does that not get laid at the head coach's feet, right? That's my only thing. That's my major point about John Harbaugh, right? He is allowed to skate on a lot of things because he's a quote unquote special teams coach, right? Even though I just said that he has experience with all facets of football, but if you hear about why this or why that happened, people say, well, how can you blame John Harbaugh for that? He doesn't call plays on defense. He doesn't call plays on offense. How can that be John Harbaugh's fault, right? So, in my opinion, right, he gets an excuse for a lot of times when the Ravens fail. Are the failures totally on him? No, they're not. But he wouldn't be the first head coach of a team that's been relatively successful to be let go, right? Um, I think we get too caught up in the fact of, well, yeah, well, who else are you going to hire? And to me, that's the worst phrase ever. Well, who else is going to take the job, right? Before um, Todd Monken, literally the Ravens were in the same situation. Before Todd Monken, when Greg Roman was on the hot seat and Ravens fans like me and you were saying that Greg Roman needs to go, you would have fans that would point to, well, this is Lamar Jackson's most successful offense, right? This is the only offense Lamar Jackson can play in. You would have Ravens fans that would say, well, if not Greg Roman, then who? Who are you going to get that's going to be able to do this for Lamar Jackson, right? That's ignorant. There are new coaches that pop up every cycle. Todd Monken was available, right? He came off of what Georgia was two-time defending national champions, had a great offense over there. The Ravens hired him. There's always coaching candidates out there. So this idea of, well, who are you going to get? I don't know who you could be able to get that's going to be a decent enough head coach. You got to get out that mindset. That's, to me, that allows you to stay in the same place and stagnant. And that's where the Ravens are. All right. Now, it could be very well he signs a contract extension, the Ravens go on, win Super Bowl, whatever. And, obviously we'll be happy with that. Right. But for my money, how I feel about it is that I've seen a coach that is comfortable. He wants to win, right? The Ravens keep making the same mistakes that stopped them from winning, but he's the only person that doesn't get to lose the job, right? So, it was Greg Roman's fault. We got to get him out of here, right? We've got down in the Ravens have changed a million coordinators and do the same things in the playoffs, right? I would say last year was kind of the first year in a while where it was like, well, play caller wasn't bad. The Ravens made some mistakes. I mean, you could point to the not running the ball in the goal line versus Buffalo, obviously, whatever. But for the large part of that game, is reason is turnovers, right? The Ravens, the players on the field made those mistakes. But the point is, right, the larger point being is that John Harbaugh gets to escape a lot of criticism. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always another reason. It's always, well, it's not really on John Harbaugh. What about that guy? And at some point, as a head coach, the responsibility has to lie at your feet, right? That's all I'm saying about it. For me, I'm not saying that the Ravens should have fired John Harbaugh in the offseason, but make him earn this head coaching job. He's comfortable. He's too comfortable, right? Let him coach out this season on the last year of his deal. Let's see if we light a fire on him. Let's see if something changes. And maybe that helps get the Ravens over the hump, right? And maybe it doesn't, right? I don't know. But for me, I wasn't rushing to give him this new contract extension. To me, it was unnecessary. But like I said, I'm not surprised that they did it. I would say I land in the more of the I'm more disappointed that they did it, right? Give him opportunities to go out there, be on the hot seat for a little bit. Let's see how he reacts to it. Let's see what he does, right? But that's my thoughts on it. That's my opinions on it. People are probably going to disagree with it, right? John Harbaugh, like I said, is the greatest coach in Ravens franchise history. But we're not giving out lifetime achievement awards, right? Are you the best coach for the Ravens to win 2025, 2026, 2027, and beyond? That's what it's about, right? So that's my thoughts on it. Obviously, give me your thoughts in the comments, man. But it's Gabriel, just on Fan TV. I'm out.